The biggest lie we tell ourselves about the modern internet.
Oh, man. I'm going to guess it's the idea that it actually saves us time.
Exactly. I mean, we always say that, right?
Yeah, we feel like we're saving time every single day.
But are we? Or do we just do entirely different work? Like, think about planning a holiday for you and your family.
Right.
You go to ChatGPT or Gemini or, whatever flavor of AI you prefer, and you just say, find me a hotel in Tokyo for next Tuesday under $200.
And it gives you a list, which is great.
It is great, but then what actually happens?
And then the manual labor starts.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you have to click the link, you have to check the dates again, because let's be honest, you don't really trust the bot.
No, of course not.
You pull out the credit card, you navigate the CAPA TCHA, proving you aren't a robot, which is ironic.
Ironic. Yeah.
And then you deal with the confirmation email. So the AI did the easy part, the search. You did the hard part, the execution.
I see where you're going with this. We're sort of stuck in this search and retrieval loop. We ask, it retrieves, but we still have to do all the acting.
Precisely. But today, for this deep dive, we are looking into a technology that wants to completely break that loop.
Yeah, the shift to the agentic economy.
Yes, the agentic economy, a world where software doesn't just, chat with you. It goes out and negotiates, it spends money, and it gets things done literally while you're asleep.
It is a massive shift. I mean, it's the difference between handing someone a map and hiring a chauffeur.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're focusing on the centerpiece of this whole movement from our source material. Fetch.ai and this incredibly complex, multi-billion-dollar organism it recently formed.
Right, the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance,
Well,
or ASI for short.
And let me tell you, going through these sources, this is not some dry technical paper. This story has everything.
It really does.
It's got this massive bid to dethrone Google. It's got an Avengers-style team-up of all these crypto projects. And it has a corporate breakup so incredibly messy that it ended up in a New York court.
It reads like a soap opera, honestly. But the stakes are literally the future of the global economy. It's about who actually controls the infrastructure of the next decade.
Exactly. So where do we even start with this?
Well, I think we have to start with the action layer. That's how the sources describe Fetch.ai.
Right, the action layer. But what does that actually mean? Because AI agent is becoming such a huge buzzword right now, and I want to make sure we aren't just, buying into marketing hype.
Fair enough, yeah. To understand Fetch, you really have to get your head around the Autonomous Economic Agent, or AEA.
AEA, right?
And the key word there is economic. Because most AI we use today is totally passive. It generates text or makes images. But an AEA is a digital twin that represents something.
Like representing you or?
Your car, a shipping container, a hotel room, anything really.
Okay, but digital twin is kind of a common term. Usually that just means like a 3D model of a factory or a jet engine.
Right. But in the Fetch ecosystem, this twin has actual agency. It's not just a passive model, it's an actor. The technical documentation we looked at highlights a component called the decision maker.
The decision maker.
Yeah, think of this as the agent's brain. It holds your goals. So like book a hotel under $200. But critically, and this is the part that changes absolutely everything, it holds your private keys.
Which means it has its own wallet.
Exactly. It can sign transactions, it can hold funds, it can literally execute a contract without asking you for permission at every single step.
Wow.
That is the fundamental difference between an assistant and an agent. An assistant makes suggestions, but an agent makes decisions.
So if I have an agent, right, and the Marriott in Tokyo has an agent, they don't even need to go through Expedia.
Precisely. They find each other using something called the almanac contract.
Oh, I love that term in the notes, the almanac. It sounds very retro-futuristic, like Back to the Future.
It really does. But it functions like a totally decentralized phone book or a registry. So if you are a hotel room that wants to be booked, your agent registers its skills in the almanac. My travel agent queries the almanac, finds your agent based on those skills, and they just negotiate directly.
Peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer. No middleman taking a 20 or 30% cut.
So it's like the ultimate disintermediation. But the sources gave some examples that went way beyond just travel. The one that really clicked for me was the supply chain application.
Oh yeah, the supply chain stuff is fascinating.
Because supply chains are so boring until they break right. And then they are literally the only thing that matters.
That's exactly where the ROI is so massive here. Imagine a shipping container crossing the Atlantic. It has its own agent. A storm system forms.
Right.
The agent predicts a delay based on the weather data. Instead of a human logistician finding out 3 days later when the ship just doesn't show up, the containers agent immediately communicates with the port's agent and the trucking company's agent.
And it just reroutes itself.
Reroutes, renegotiates the arrival time, and potentially even pays a premium for expedited handling to make up the lost time, all within seconds.
It is wild.
It's proactive, not reactive. It effectively smooths out the chaos of global logistics without a human ever having to pick up a phone.
That's incredible. And then there's the Internet of Energy partnership with Bosch. This one felt a bit more futuristic to me, but looking at the grid issues we have today, maybe it's just inevitable.
It's actually quite practical when you break it down. If you have solar panels on your roof, you are an energy producer. But right now, you just dump that excess energy back to the grid for pennies.
Right, or whatever the utility company just decides to pay you.
Exactly. But in the Fetch model, your house's agent talks directly to your neighbor's house agent.
Like, hey, I see you're charging your Tesla.
Exactly. I have excess power right now. I'll sell it to you for cheaper than the grid, but more than the utility buyback rate. Your agent sells directly to their agent.
So my house is basically day trading electricity while I'm sitting at work.
That's exactly what it's doing. It optimizes the local grid. It prevents brownouts by balancing the load locally without a centralized utility having to micromanage every single kilowatt.
It turns the entire grid into a market.
A fully automated market, yeah.
Okay, so that's the grand vision. Independent agents doing business. But Fetch.ai decided they couldn't do this alone. In March 2024, they formed this super alliance.
The ASI Alliance.
Right, but why? If the tech is so good, why dilute the brand and merge with all these other projects?
Because the competition is absolutely terrifying. Just look at the board. You have OpenAI, Microsoft, Google. They have virtually infinite resources.
Yeah, they have the money.
They have the money, the data centers, the chips, the PhDs. No single crypto project, no matter how clever their code is, can compete with that capitalization.
So they had to team up.
Exactly. The strategy for the ASI Alliance was vertical integration. They wanted to build a full stack that could actually stand toe-to-toe with Silicon Valley.
They wanted to build the Avengers. Yeah. Essentially, yeah. You take Fetch.ai, Esto. That's the action layer, the agents we just discussed. You merge it with SingularityNET.
That's Ben Goertzel's project, right? The intelligence layer.
Yes. SingularityNET is the marketplace for the actual AI models, the brains that the agents use to think. Because an agent needs to be smart to negotiate well.
Makes sense.
Then you had Ocean Protocol, which is the data layer. AI needs massive amounts of data to learn, and Ocean provided a way to share and monetize that data without compromising user privacy.
Okay, so you have the body, which is Fetch the brain, which is SingularityNET, and the memory with Ocean. But looking at the timeline of the sources, they realized fairly quickly they were missing the engine.
The hardware. You can have the smartest code in the world, but if you don't have the chips to run it, you're just dead in the water. That's where CUDOS came in. They merged in October 2024.
Right, this is the compute layer. And I want to drill down here because the hardware shortage is such a real bottleneck in this whole industry. Everyone is fighting for NVIDIA chips. What does CUDOS actually bring to the table? They solve what's called the silicon gap. If the alliance wants to be genuinely decentralized, they can't just rent servers from Amazon AWS.
Because if they do, they aren't really decentralized, are they?
Exactly. Jeff Bezos could just flip a switch and the decentralized AI ceases to exist.
You're just renting space on your competitor's computer.
Precisely. That is a massive strategic vulnerability. So CUDOS aggregates distributed computing power. We are talking about high-end NVIDIA chips, H100s, A100s, even the new GB200s. They pull capacity from data centers and edge devices globally.
The sources mention a pretty significant cost advantage here, too.
Yeah, they claim to be about 50% cheaper than centralized providers like AWS.
50% is a massive margin in a compute-heavy industry. How is that even possible?
Because they are often utilizing idle capacity. It's almost like the Airbnb model, but for GPUs. Plus, they aren't paying the massive overhead of building new mega campuses in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And in December 2025, the Alliance actually launched their own sovereign GPU cluster in a sustainable data center in Sweden. So they're building physical infrastructure now, not just writing code. They're buying the chips, racking the servers, plugging them in.
So let's look at the team sheet here. You have the brains with SingularityNET, the agents with Fetch the Data with Ocean, and the hardware with CUDOS. They merged all these tokens, FET AJX Ocean into one massive ecosystem. It sounds like the perfect answer to Silicon Valley centralization.
It does on paper. It makes perfect logical sense.
But humans are complicated.
Yeah.
And DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, are notoriously difficult to manage. It's like trying to steer a ship where literally everyone on board has a hand on the wheel.
Difficult is definitely putting it politely.
Let's talk about the breakup. This is the part of the story that feels less like a tech white paper and way more like an episode of Succession.
Oh, absolutely.
October 2025. Ocean Protocol suddenly withdraws from the alliance. And looking at the court filings and the blog posts we reviewed, this was not amicable at all. This was a messy, messy divorce.
It was incredibly messy. But it's also a perfect case study for why decentralized governance is so hard. You had three very different cultures trying to merge their treasuries and their roadmaps.
Let's impartially look at Ocean Protocol's side first. Why did they leave? They were part of a multi-billion-dollar giant. Why just walk away?
Ocean described it as a shotgun marriage. They felt they were losing their sovereignty. But the specific accusations were deeply financial. They claimed that SingularityNET had a completely unsustainable burn rate, allegedly spending $6 million a month.
$6 million a month? Just for a decentralized protocol, where does that money even go?
That's exactly the question Ocean was asking. Development marketing grants, it adds up fast. But the bigger bombshell was Ocean's claim about a specific financial deal executed by Fetch.ai, referred to as the TRNR deal.
I read the notes on this. It involved an ETF deal with a company called Interactive Strength, Inc. It sounded remarkably complicated for a tech company to be doing.
It was a very high-risk financial play. According to Ocean, Fetch committed $50 million in cash and used 125 million FET tokens as collateral.
Okay.
Ocean claims that when the crypto market took a dip, that collateral got fully liquidated. They allege this deal wiped out $150 million in assets.
Ouch. 150 million gone. So Ocean is looking at this and saying, you guys are gambling with the treasury and we want absolutely no part of it.
Essentially, yes. They framed it as reckless financial management that threatened the stability of the entire alliance. They said they needed to protect their own community's value.
But Fetch.ai didn't just take this lying down. They actually sued Ocean in New York. What was their counter-argument? Because usually you don't sue someone for leaving your group unless they took the silverware on the way out.
Right. Their argument was that Ocean Protocol was actively sabotaging the alliance. The lawsuit alleges that Ocean sold 263 million tokens that were supposed to be locked up or used for DAO rewards.
Wait, 263 million tokens? That is easily enough to move the market.
Fetch claims it did move the market. They argue Ocean was dumping on the community, selling off massive amounts of tokens, depressing the price, all while pretending to still be a partner.
Wow.
They viewed Ocean's exit not as some moral stand against spending, but as a way to escape accountability for breaking the governance agreement regarding those specific tokens.
It's so fascinating. On one side, you have your reckless spenders. On the other, you have your market manipulators.
And the truth is, in these decentralized mergers, there is no SEC or central regulator to just step in and mediate easily. It's all code and contracts, and when those break down, it inevitably goes to traditional courts. It really shows that even in the trustless world of crypto, trust is actually the most important thing.
So Ocean is out. They launched a buyback and burn program to try and save their own tokens value. But the Alliance Fetch, SingularityNET, and CUDOS, they're pressing on. And interestingly, after this breakup, they seem to have realized they need to grow up a bit.
Yeah, they are professionalizing. That's the word on the street anyway. They hired a new Chief Revenue Officer, Joe Hurst, who was formerly at Dell.
Which is a huge signal. You don't hire a guy from Dell to play around with crypto tokens. You hire him to sell to enterprises.
Exactly. They are pivoting hard toward B2B revenue. Less reliance on tokenomics and more reliance on selling actual infrastructure and agent services to real companies.
Yeah.
They want to be a revenue-generating business, not just a token project.
Which brings us to the part of the story that I think matters most for you listening today, the actual real-world adoption. Because all this corporate drama is fun, but if we can't use the tech, who cares?
Right, the last mile problem.
Exactly. How does an AI actually buy something in the real world? If my agent finds a flight, that's great. But if I still have to step in and pay for it, we haven't really solved the problem, have we?
This is where the partnership with Visa comes in. In January 2026, Fetch launched the ASI.1 payment system.
Wait, Visa? Like the Visa?
The very same. This is huge for their legitimacy. The system allows agents to spend USDC, FET, or even use standard bank cards. But the killer feature here is the security. They utilize one-time credentials.
You're going to have to unpack that one for me because I'm just imagining my AI agent running around the internet with my actual Visa card number, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. If my agent gets hacked, do they just drain my bank account?
That's exactly what they designed this to avoid. Imagine your agent initiates a booking for that hotel in Tokyo. Instead of handing over your actual credit card details, which could obviously be stolen or misused, the system generates a unique single-use token or virtual card number for that specific transaction, for that exact amount.
So even if the hotel's database gets hacked 5 minutes later, my data is completely useless to them.
Precisely. And once the payment is settled, the credential expires immediately. It severely limits the blast radius of any potential security issue.
But what about the rogue AI fear? We've all seen the sci-fi movies. What stops an anonymous bot from just buying up every single ticket to the Taylor Swift concert or purchasing something totally illegal?
That is the other half of the Visa integration. Identity verification. The system rigidly enforces KYC, know your customer. An agent cannot transact on the network at all unless it is cryptographically tied to a verified human or corporate identity.
So the agent has a license to spend, but if it buys something illegal, the cops are showing up at my door.
Correct. The accountability remains strictly with the human. The agent is just a tool. It essentially solves the anonymity problem that terrifies regulators so much.
That actually makes me feel a lot better. It grounds the whole tech in reality. But you mentioned something earlier about the speed. If we have millions of these agents buying coffee and charging cars and booking flights, standard blockchains are just too slow, right? Like Bitcoin takes 10 minutes to confirm a single block.
Oh yeah. Standard blockchains would grind to an absolute halt. That's why they moved the architecture to something called a block DAG. A block DAG. Okay,
Yeah.
What is that? It stands for Directed Acyclic Graph. Think of a standard blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum as a single file line at a grocery store. One transaction happens, then the next, then the next. If the line gets long, you just have to wait.
Which is exactly why gas fees spike and networks get clogged up.
Right. But a block DAG is like opening 20 different checkout lanes at the grocery store simultaneously. Transactions can happen in parallel. They don't have to wait for the previous block to close. They branch out like a tree rather than forming a straight line.
No, so it's like a multi-lane highway instead of a single dirt road.
Exactly. And for machine-to-machine commerce, this is totally non-negotiable. If you have millions of sensors cars and travel agents all trading micro amounts of data and money every single second, you need massive, massive throughput. A standard blockchain simply cannot handle that volume.
So pulling this all together from the sources, we have the agent technology that can negotiate and act. We have the compute power from CUDOS to run it without relying on Amazon. We have the payment rails from Visa to make it real and secure. And we have a block DAG to make it incredibly fast.
The pieces are all there. The puzzle is basically assembled.
But we also have the warning signs. The Ocean Protocol split shows that holding this coalition together is really, really hard. And looking at the roadmap for 2026, there is a very interesting pivot. The sources mention a partnership with Google to integrate Gemini models.
That's just highly ironic, right?
Call that
The whole original mission was to be the anti-Google.
Right. We are here to destroy the centralized giants. Also, hey, can we borrow your language model?
It is ironic, but it's also highly pragmatic. Google's Gemini is incredibly good at natural language, understanding what you actually say. Fetch is incredibly good at economic action, doing what you say. By plugging Gemini into the ASI agents, they get the best conversational interface without having to build a brand new LLM from scratch.
It really suggests they're realizing that their competitive advantage isn't the chatbot, it's the wallet.
Spot on. Let Google handle the chat. ASI handles the transaction. That is where the real value capture is. If they can own the transaction layer of the AI economy, it doesn't really matter whose chatbot you use.
It's a lot to process. We are moving from a world where we use software to a world where we essentially delegate our lives to it.
Delegation really is the key word for this next era.
And that actually leads me to the thought I want to leave you with today. We are building this economy where machines trade with machines. Your house sells energy to a car. Your calendar books your flight. Ideally, it's this utopia of efficiency.
We get our time back. We get to be humans again, not just admins for our own lives.
We do, but as we hand over our private keys to these agents, we are stepping out of the loop. We become the beneficiaries of their decisions, sure. But we also become somewhat passive. If the economy is running on autopilot at speeds no human can even track operating on logic, we might not even see. Do we really own our economic choices anymore? Or are we just kind of along for the ride?
That is the big question. It's incredibly convenient, but convenience always costs control. We are trading the friction of doing it ourselves for the opacity of letting the machine do it.
Something to chew on the next time you find yourself annoyed at having to manually enter your credit card number? That annoyance might just be the last bit of control you have left.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
See you next time.